there, fantasy owners. Welcome to LTC Fantasy, or Lift the Cup Fantasy, as some people call it. We're continuing along with our 21-22 team reviews. Today we're going to look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll check out who led them in different stats for goalies, defensemen, and forwards. Who's their biggest fantasy disappointment? Who's their biggest fantasy surprise? And also look at players that were relevant fantasy-wise on a weekly basis. And take a peek at some streamers that help some owners out throughout different points of the regular season there. These reviews continue to come out a few times a week because no better way than, watching Tampa in the finals and talking a little bit of fantasy hockey there. Good to see them get a win last night there. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you can catch your favorite team's review. Maybe you can catch your rivals' review. Maybe you want to catch all 32 or just take a peek at a team that sometimes gets overlooked fantasy-wise. So we'll get right into it. Goalies, it's basically the Vasilevsky show. No surprise there. Led him in games played at 63. Led him in wins at 39. Brian Elliott actually had a better goals against average at 2.43. Not much better. Vasilevsky was 2.49 and obviously played a lot more minutes there. And save percentage was Vasilevsky again at .916. Of course, Vasilevsky's a goalie that you build your fantasy roster around if you're one of those guys that build from the net out for sure. He does it all. He plays a ton of games, gets you a ton of wins. Wins is what really matters, fantasy-wise anyways. His GAA was under 2.5. He had a save percentage at .916. So, really, there's many reasons why he's usually the first goalie off the board in fantasy drafts. D-man stats, it was, another guy, Victor Hedman, that kind of highlights everything here. Led him in goals at 20, so a 20-goal defenseman, they're hard to come by, so that's really nice by him. Led him in assists at 65 and points at 85, so really nice point total, well over a point per game for a D-man. Plus minus, he was plus 26. Hits was led by Eric Chernak. He had 165 hits. And Ryan McDonough led him in blocks at 137 blocks. Then we're back to Hedman when talking about shots on goal. He had 219 shots on goal. So over that 200 shot mark, that's really nice total for a defenseman there. And as the stats kind of say, Hedman is a defenseman that does it all. That's why he's drafted quite high in fantasy drafts there. He scores, plays a power play. He gets a decent amount of hits and blocks for a offensive defenseman for sure. And again, he was over a point per game. Sergachev also had a decent season. Should mention him. He was, like I said, decent most of the season. He'd be a nice streaming option, or if it's a deep league, you could play him every week. He does get you a decent amount of points. He's just kind of overshadowed by everything Hedman does, that's for sure. Forward stats, Steven Stamkos led him in goals at 42. Nice 40-goal season again for the veteran there. Led him in assists at 64 and points at 106. So really nice totals there. Plus minus was a tie between Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Steven Stamkos. They were both plus 24. Patrick Maroon led him in hits at 160. Anthony Chiarelli led him in blocks, 67. That's a nice block total for a forward there. And shots on goal was Stamkos again at 241. Really, the forward group is led by Stamkos, as Point and Kucherov missed some time this year due to injury. Point and Kucherov, when they're healthy, were definitely really valuable fantasy assets for you. Really, other options are there. They got Palat that plays power play, either first line or second line. Kaloran, same thing. Chiarelli at times also had some nice spurts throughout the season there. Biggest fantasy disappointment? It is kind of hard to pick one when you're talking about back-to-back Stanley Cup winners. Obviously, they have a pretty strong roster there. But if I had to pick one, and kind of being picky here, it'd be Andre Palat. He put up 46 points in 55 games last year, and he only had 49 points, so only 3 points more in 77 games played this year. Still a nice total, nice streaming total, but if you're putting up 46 and 55, you're kind of figuring if he's playing in that 79 game range to have right around 65 points, and he just wasn't there for you. So it'd be a little bit disappointing if you did probably got drafted higher than what his fantasy value was this year. Biggest fantasy surprise has to be Steven Stamkos. He's 32 years old, and it's the first time that he eclipsed the 100-point mark in his career. So didn't really see that coming. You expect him to be right around 80 to 85, but eclipsing the 100-point mark and doing it at 32. He's been in the league 14 years. That really did surpass my expectations. Who is relevant fantasy-wise on a weekly basis? There's obviously a number of them, with them winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. There's a strong roster, as I mentioned. Vasilevsky, obviously Hedman on defense, up front. Kucherov, Point, and Stamkos, when they're healthy. Like, Kucherov put up a ton of points in a short amount of time. Can't remember the exact total. He had 60-some points in 49 games played. Like, really nice point totals there. Streamers, they obviously have a lot of streamers too for light nights. There's Sergachev on the back end. Up front, there's Killorn, Palat, Chiarelli, Hagel at times, Perry, and Paul there. There's a lot of different options streaming-wise. Really hope you did enjoy today's episode. We'll be out in a few days with another one. If you did like it, remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and remember that notification bell. And enjoy the rest of the finals there, fantasy owners.